What's happening, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode with Mom and Papa Joe. On the menu today is a brisket. It's just before bedtime, and I'm going to start trimming the brisket that we're going to cook tomorrow in the oven. Never did one in the oven before, but we're going to see if we can't cook it exactly like we would out there on the pit, except it's in the oven. Let's get started. So what we have here is a 14-pound brisket from Walmart. I want to say an inexpensive brisket, but nowadays nothing is inexpensive. Select, nothing fancy. It looks like it's a pretty decent brisket. Let me take it to the sink, get it dried off, and we'll be right back. We've got it rinsed off and got it nice and dry. Here we're looking at a pretty thin flat. I'm going to speed through this trimming. Time for bed. If you're interested in a more detailed trim, I will place them in my top left as well as in the description. So for our seasonings today, we're going to go with our usual 16 mesh cracked black pepper. 3 tablespoons 16 mesh cracked black pepper. 1 tablespoon kosher salt. And we're going to be working on a smoke ring tomorrow. A natural smoke ring. So we're going to be using celery salt. 1 tablespoon of kosher salt and 1 tablespoon of celery salt. We'll see if that helps us with a smoke ring. All right, we got a fairly small brisket. Give that a nice shake. Our brisket is pretty dry. We're going to go with a binder. And today I'm going to be using my Maggie Hugo. You can use whatever binder you choose. I'm going to be cooking this brisket fat side up tomorrow. I don't know that it's going to make a difference. All right, the rub we just made. Let's hit the sides. Press it in on those sides. Before we flip, I'm going to put it on my tray because it's going in the refrigerator. A little more Maggie. And folks, that just about did it, man. All right, I'm going to cover this up with some saran wrap, and we're going to put her in the fridge till about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, give or take. All right, so we're back. Our brisket has been out of the fridge for about an hour, coming to temperature. I've got my oven preheated to 225. I'm going to take it off of this plastic rack. So I'm going to come back gentle-like. And what that piece of onion does is raises the brisket up towards the center and try to mitigate this curling that this flat wants to do. And we're starting at 225 to slowly warm up this brisket. Again, to try to slow down, mitigate that curling. If you shock it with 300, it tightens up real quick and this wants to curl. So we're going to try to prevent that. After an hour at 225, we're going to bump it up to 250. Okay, we're at 2-hour mark. First hour on 225, second hour 250. All right, we still got just a little curlage on that thin end of the flat, but we're starting to get some rendering now. At this point, I'm going to turn the temperature up to 275. And this will be our cooking temperature the rest of the time, now that we've warmed this brisket up. Still not ready to do anything, no spritzing or anything. I'm starting to see some render in there, and it is looking good, smelling good. 275 the rest of the way. All right, we are at 4 hours. Ooh, we got some curlage. So we've been at 275 for 2 hours. And that fat is starting to break down. The bark is set. It's nice and dry on this side. But as I rotate and I look at the back side, this is the problem the curling causes. When the flat curls up, it creates a little pocket where your bark doesn't set because it collects moisture. So the only thing you can do when that happens is sort of tilt it to get it to drain. So what I'm going to do now is just find a piece of foil, stick it onto the back side to just try to lift this up. That way it will drain. So with some wool gloves under here and just lift up. And there we go. Raise that up and you can see it. I don't know how well you're able to see it, but it's running off. So what I've got here is just a little vinegar, apple cider vinegar and water. The areas that are nice and dry, I'm just going to mist to keep that bark soft as it develops. All right. So we're going to put that back in and let it continue doing its thing. Another hour, we'll come back. All right, we are at 5.5 hours, folks. Let's see what we're working with. All right, that is dried up, man. This brisket is not a thick brisket, pretty thin. So hopefully we are very close to wrapping. All right, 186, 197. I definitely wanted it to be in that 180 range to wrap. I like the color. Oh, that it is so soft. Let's get set up to wrap this thing. I want to use some of the oil from this pan, but this tallow, I'm going to use to soften and to moisturize our butcher paper. It's going to really keep our bark nice and moist. We'll make sure we get this spread out. I want to go fat down, fat side down. Oh, that looks good. This brisket feels really good. Put it down. Remember, we are fat down. We'll come back and we're back fat up. And because there's so much oil in this pan, just going to use a fresh pan. All right, so we're going back into the oven. Still 275. This is not going to take but maybe another hour to hour and a half. So we'll be keeping an eye on it. It's been an hour since we wrapped and put it back in the oven. And because we were pushing 180, 185, man, it probes like butter. 211. I am going to call this good. Like I said, just short of 7 hours. Turning this oven off, and we are going to let this rest for a couple of hours. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've been resting for 3 hours. Immediately after I pulled it when it was finished, I let it sit on the counter out in the open, just loosely covered with foil for an hour. The oven was off. At the end of that hour, I put it into the oven, the warm oven, and there it sat for 2 hours, and that is where we are now. Let's take a look, see?
Looks like the bark.
Oh, she's a pretty little girl, man. Look at that. Nice bark. Oh, man, still nice and soft. Well, let's see, man. Folks, this is a select, nice rendering. Oh, that fat. Nice shine. Wow.
You said this was a select?
This is a select. A Walmart select. There you go, Mom.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Still was piece.
Wow, look at the shine on this thing. This is a select. I didn't get any kind of smoke ring from my celery salt. Maybe the Maggi interfered with it. I don't know. In the oven. That is absolute money. Tender and juicy. I'm kind of blown away. Let's close this out, Mama. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, if you live in an apartment, can't burn a fire, or you don't have a pit, or you're not comfortable on a pit, you need to try this brisket. I can only imagine if it was a prime or higher. Thank you guys as usual for hanging out with Mom and Papa Joe. Mom and I really appreciate it. Be on the lookout for another video coming very soon. And in the meantime, we want you guys to take care of yourselves, love each other, and Mom and I will see you when we see you. Holla.